Beyond the Gate spoilers tease that Dani is incandescent the moment Bill says Hayley will be at Chelsea's party. The words hang between them like a dish that's been dropped and gone off the table, small shards of glass catching the light. It isn't only what he said, but the way he said it softly, as if it were a truth he'd expected she would understand or even agree with. Dani's jaw tightens into a line she knows will be hard to ease. Her hands, still damp from wiping down the cake table, curl into fists at her sides until her palms ache. "You're joking," she says, but her voice is thin. It does not carry the laugh Bill had hoped for. Chelsea's laughter from upstairs, an easy, unaffected sound, tangles painfully with Dani's suspicion. Bill, adjusting the sleeve of his suit, gives her an answering smile that refuses to read like guilt. He knows how to disarm arguments with warmth. It's part of the house he has built, the fatherly charm that keeps neighbors thinking everything has always been in place. "I'm not." Hayley said she wanted to come. "Asked me herself." Dani hates that Bill says it as if this agrees with her. She hates that he said it like she should. She hates Hayley without reminding herself why. The word has come loose from its tether to the past, to betrayal, to the scene at the lake where someone laughed and someone else left, and now it follows her around the Dupree house like a stray dog. "You invited her?" The question is brittle. Chelsea comes down for a moment from her bedroom to see what the noise is. A glance, a flash of curiosity. Bill reassures. He tells Chelsea to go on and have fun with her friends. He tells Dani, "It's fine. It's just a party." He sounds tired and warm, like someone defending a small mercy from a household bleaker than it ought to be. But Dani is not mollified. She knows Bill has both the patience to let things lie and the stubbornness to let certain others come close. Hayley, recent to the neighborhood with a soft, bright manner and a laugh that echoes like a coin in a cup, is small and disruptive in Dani's internal map. She has always been in the wrong place at the wrong time, too intimate with things she doesn't own and too quick to stab with smiles. The accusation forming in Dani's head is precisely irrational, precisely precise. Why should Hayley be at a Dupree family celebration when she is, at best, a curious guest and at worst, an agent of change no one needs tonight? Bill, sensing the hardening, tries something that has pulled him out of worse storms. He reaches for Dani's hand. "She's alone?" she asked. "Chelsea invited friends and Bill said it's open house." He fumbles the phrase and then shrugs. He means well. He has always believed in inclusion as a remedy to grudges, in flooding a small door with light to see what scurries out. But deeper in Bill's head a different calculation turns and clicks. He has seen Hayley and Thomas in that awkward tableau, two people with histories like spiderwebs, thin threads that catch on different parts of his own story. He has watched the way Hayley leaned in, the way Thomas answered with a guarded smile. He is old enough to remember how small cruelties get magnified into catastrophes. He's young enough to think he can tame them with kindness. He thinks he knows what Hayley staged with Thomas, a small, theatrical jab at him. Maybe she did it on purpose. Maybe she did it without thinking. Maybe she liked the danger. Bill decides to treat the whole thing as a minor dish best left unbroken. He lets Hayley come to Chelsea's birthday because he thinks the exposure will diffuse tension. If there was a scene planned, if Hayley wanted to rattle him, then there's no better cure than the light from the Dupree table and the easy center of their home. Hayley is the kind of woman who knows how to wear pity like perfume. She arrives with a box of cupcakes, a sideways grin, and a way of speaking that asks forgiveness and gives it to herself at once. She has the small, dangerous habit of looking like an apology. Bill had caught her in the driveway, crouched under the rear of his car, feigning a search for a lost earring or the muffling of something mechanical. She rose like a secret being revealed, hand on the hood, hair a tangle, eyes bright and exact. "I didn't want to intrude," she whispers to him, and he recognizes the same plea he has used sometimes. Thin forgives itself and insists and lets it pass. Hayley's smile is a series of unexamined promises. Dani, however, reads her the way you read a book you've already judged, the margin stained, the print smudged. By the time she sees Hayley at the buffet laughing with the neighbor's daughter, Dani's face is new with heat. The flash of laughter between Hayley and Thomas Terray, near the punch bowl, sets something in her chest to smolder. This is not mere jealousy. It is a sharpening of old, delicate hurts. Dani's mind stitches back the moment at the lake, the almost remembered aside, the hum of an argument she never heard but somehow knows. All of it bends toward a rumor that Bill has not invited ghosts to their safe room. And even if it is only a rumor, even if she invents every thorn, she will not allow Hayley to make her small, steady life an experiment. Bill's phone plays into the suspicion, a small, glowing blackness that holds secrets the way a seed holds a tree. He leaves it, once always near the kitchen sink. He thinks of it as a talisman, he thinks of it as harmless. Hayley, whose fingers are small and deficient, slips it into her purse when she passes by on a pretense of tying her scarf. The move is so casual Dani could have blamed the motion on a clumsy reach for a napkin. But this is not clumsy. What Hayley wants is not clear, and that is the most menacing part of it. She pockets the phone with the easy grace of someone who has done it before, and she departs deliberately, promising to be back soon because she wants to check in on Chelsea. Bill does not notice for half an hour, until he leaves to fetch the backyard cushions and realizes his phone is gone. He and Dani search together, calming. In the hallway, a smear on the wall and a single red smear of lipstick on the edge of the napkin holder. Bill's heart does a small, unfamiliar flip. He has asked himself whether Hayley ever had a reason to read his texts. He tells himself that she's looking for the name of a contractor, or maybe for Chelsea's contact list. The truth about curiosity is that it rarely limits itself. Hayley is in her modest rental across town while the Dupree house hums with music. She sits at the tiny dresser in her bedroom, Bill's phone spread open like a map. Her thumb scrolls through messages with the patient, greedy attention of someone trying to locate a heartbeat inside a chest. She searches for evidence of attention, not always romantic, not always malicious. She looks for the proof that will grant her a role in the Dupree narrative, an ally, a threat, or at least a reason for her earlier provocations with Thomas. She finds mundane bills, a bakery order, half a dozen middle-aged chain texts. She finds Chelsea's name in a few contact entries. Then, lower in the list, under a date she doesn't expect, Hayley finds a thread of messages between Bill and someone named Max. The messages are ordinary enough: plans about a model train restoration, an invitation to take Chelsea to the Science Museum. But interlaced there, almost obscured by the calm, something else breathes: a photograph of Bill standing in a field at dusk, his face softened by light, and a message: "I don't think she knows yet. Talk later." The words are enough to make Hayley's stomach go thin. She did not expect to find tenderness to someone else. She had expected indifference, or perhaps that fanciful cruelty that had made Thomas laugh earlier. The photograph moves her though. She fingers it as if it were fragile, like the edge of a postage stamp. She wants to show someone, to confirm what she is feeling. But who would understand this cabal? She is not certain whether she is looking for betrayal or proof. In the same breath, she remembers Thomas's uncomfortable smile and thinks of the way he pulled away when Eva walked in earlier that week. Meanwhile, back at the Dupree home, the gossip engine of a suburban party is alive and kind. The adults talk about weather and work, and the children create small layers of chaos. Bill, trying to play the role of a father and husband who keeps things even, is a little distracted. He thinks of Hayley's face in the photograph and tries to reconcile it with the woman who came to his front porch pretending a car problem. He tells himself there's an explanation. He tells himself she is probably calling Max in the photograph a friend with whom she shares interest in trains. He thinks the small worry will fade if they all eat, laugh, and the night goes on. But Dani is watching like a hawk. And the hawk sees more than the man with the easy grin. Dani sees the way Bill relaxes into Hayley's presence, the way his voice loses the edge when he speaks to her. She has known him long enough to decipher the little gestures of tenderness he leaves like crumbs for strangers. She thinks of history, all the small ways two people become an us, the private jokes, the secrets, the sometimes forgotten promises to call at bedtime. She fears these crumbs become a path someone might follow. Within the tangle of the evening, a smaller reconciliation takes place that should have been a distraction but becomes a counterpoint to the main tremor. Kat and Thomas, after weeks of friction centered absurdly around Eva, have taken a breath and decided to make it right. Kat has called Thomas at dawn, voice shaking, because she had heard Anita at breakfast say something about holding your tongue for the ones you love, and it had lodged like a seed in her chest. She follows the seed. She finds him at his old studio, a room smelling of dust and turpentine, where he paints landscapes that always look slightly like maps. Thomas's jaw is stubbled and his hands are oil-slicked. His face, when he looks at her, is arched somewhere between hope and weariness. She apologizes for the sharpness of her tongue. She owns the way she had jabbed at him in front of others, how she had allowed herself to be less than bisected by pride. She tells him she understands how the name Eva pinched him like a foreign object, and that she will not drag her humiliation out for sport to any living audience. Thomas, who has the slow, deliberate temperament of someone who weighs his words before he breaks them into action, nods and says he sees her. He admits he had been defensive because Eva's presence made him feel like a ghost in his own house, observed, judged, and then forgotten. They agree on a truce, a small judicial compromise. Neither will allow a baby name or deed to become the scale that tips their days. They will, as adults, prioritize their relationship. It is a small, solemn pact. The public parts of life will remain their own for a while, resigned to the fact that maturity can be as erotic as any gesture of youth. They imagine a night that might heal them. Thomas promises a dinner with candles and a playlist of songs that once belonged to them. Kat promises to wear the green dress he likes. They hold that promise like a talisman. It keeps the evening from spiraling into the drama that threatens everything else. Back at the party, the sharp drama that could have erupted is postponed by the small, domestic turbulence of Hayley's theft. Dani's suspicion mimics a fever, making everything feel more intense. She has the presence of mind to know who Hayley is and where she lives. She calls her out in a way that is designed to make noise. "You can't just come in here and treat our home like an exhibit," Dani says when she catches Hayley returning that night. Her voice is ice. "You take what isn't yours. Your type always does." Hayley looks smaller than Dani has ever seen her. For all her theatricality, a genuine hurt sharpens her features. You can see it change the way she holds herself. "I didn't take anything," Hayley says, but her hands always expressive are small and trembling. She tries to be reasonable. She tells them she merely wanted to check on Chelsea, to see if she was okay. The statement sounds plausible, but Dani is already halfway out the door into a ferocity she saves for a very few people. Dani, in a motion that feels irrevocable, tells Hayley to leave. She points toward the night, to the curb, to the world outside the Dupree's well-lit living room where she is not wanted. "Out," Dani says, and it is an order to the night as much as to Hayley. The guests shuffle, some sensing drama, some pretending not to. Bill looks stricken, as if someone has yanked a panel from his stage. He wants to intervene, to explain, but he can feel Dani's anger like heat rising from the tiles. He knows that if he crosses her now, it will be because he chose a smaller piece. Hayley leaves with dignity that could have been a posture, and with her bag slung across a shoulder that has no idea how to hold what she is carrying. Bill's phone. The stolen object sits in her purse like something that doesn't belong in the world. Number that can start a fire, a razor that can open a vein. As she walks through the purple shadow of the neighborhood, she thinks of the message from Max and what it implies. Was Bill keeping a secret? Was she now an intruder on someone's private consolation? She sits on a curb outside the Dupree home and stares until a car passes and the night settles. She runs her thumb across the photograph until the skin grows raw. The image of Bill at dusk becomes an outline in her mind. What could I don't think she knows yet. Talk later? Mean? Back at the house, there is the cleaned up chaos of party night. Toys in corners, music playing low, spilled juice on the carpet like spilled stars. Dani wanders through it like someone scanning a map for a place to bury something. She feels aggrieved not only at the present trespass but at a long archive of earlier slights that never had words, only impressions. The way Bill had lingered on the phone at the lake, the way he had laughed at a joke that wasn't made for her, the way his eyes had softened in the wrong light. She remembers, with a cruelty she saves for the worst nights, 100 small things, a sweater left on the couch, a number on a screen, a name that had seemed to be spoken from another room. She tells herself not to accuse without proof. She tells herself to collect. Bill cannot stop thinking about the phone and about Hayley's expression when she left. He knows the risk in letting things pass. He knows how small rumors grow legs and travel on the tongues of neighbors. He also knows how dangerous it is to demand proof. There are lines in marriage that cannot be crossed without causing a war. He wants to keep the house standing, the way a caretaker wants to keep the greenhouse intact for a rare plant. Hayley's motives, at least to the people she affects, look one of two ways. She could be jealous, as Dani believes someone who desires the attention Bill manifests in subtle ways. Or she could be playing a long con, something careful and deliberate intended to rearrange the furniture in everyone's lives. Or she could be neither. She could be acting out of protective instinct, or out of curiosity, or out of a loyalty to someone who once sat with Bill on a porch and promised to keep watch. Neither Dani nor Bill knows the whole of the story. But the phone holds something inside that is beginning to move the way a thing moves before it falls off a shelf, a sequence of small messages that, taken together, might be ordinary, might be a goodbye, might be a cipher for something larger. It is a catalyst. And while the Dupree house simmers, Kat and Thomas try to reknit the fabric of their evening. They take their candles seriously. They choose an old record Thomas has kept for years and place it on the player like a relic. They are two adults who have decided to perform the part of lovers because the ritual can sometimes bring the real back from a ledge. When the lights go down and the music begins, there is a tenderness that is not posturing, the warmth of shared messes, the relief of not being the thing the other thought you were. They drink wine and speak soft, direct sentences about plans for the future, about vacations, about a possible adoption, about the house. There is relief in the compromise of their promises. For a while, that corner of the night is safe. But the hour bends, as hours will, toward revelation. There is a redness in the sky the morning after that no one can mistake for sunrise. It is the omen of something that will not be small. Hayley, still thinking of the message and the photograph, decides to go back to the Dupree home and return the phone. She wants to see Bill, to give him a chance to explain. The return is not brave so much as impulsive, an act that is both apology and accusation in the same movement. She arrives at a time when the house is quiet except for Chelsea's low, contented humming and the muffled sounds of neighbors collecting their own remains of party life. Hayley slips up the path and pauses at the door. Through the window she sees Bill in the kitchen, the phone on the counter where it belongs. He is alone. He is looking at the window in a way that suggests he expects an answer he cannot name. She taps on the glass and Bill turns, as if the sound were the thing he'd been waiting for. He opens the door slowly. It seems to him that the night has thinly stretched into a new possibility. When Hayley hands him the phone, it is an awkward ritual. The two of them stand. Bill accepts it with a vulnerability that makes him look smaller than she has ever seen him. She notices the faint line in his forehead. She notices that his hands, the hands that have carried bills and birthdays and small domestic wars, shake a little. She wants to ask him directly about the messages and the photograph, but she is not sure what she will do with the answer. The risk of truth is exactly that it will demand a change. And bigger than that, in the space between handing over the phone and receiving speech, Hayley sees something in Bill's face she has not expected. It is not guilt, not exactly. It is exhaustion wrapped in a tenderness that seems to be aimed at a person who is not Hayley. The moment ends with an attempt at normalcy. Bill says, "Thank you." Hayley says, "I'm sorry." Dani emerges from the living room as if on cue, and the air between them is an electric field. The way she looks at Hayley could have been carved by wind. Dani is not satisfied by the apology. She wants clean proof, something to mark right from wrong. She wants the name of a lover, or the tearful confession, or the bloody shirt of a betrayal. When she does not find that, her disappointment becomes a new kind of rage. The story that is unfolding reads like a map with the legend left out. Each character has a piece of it, and each piece can be read in more than one way. The phone, the photograph, the choice to allow Hayley into Chelsea's party. These are not massive acts, and yet they are the kinds of small events that, when stacked, can create an avalanche. A party is a place where small decisions are mirrored back at you, A household is a place where every sliver of doubt can become a portrait. The first night, with its small explosions and small reconciliations, ends without neatness. Kat and Thomas retreat into their lived courage. Dani goes to bed with the image of Hayley's face in her mind. Bill, who has meant to be the steady center of this family's architecture, lies awake thinking about the photograph with Max, feeling a complication he cannot name. Hayley returns to her apartment clutching nothing more than a borrowed phone and something feral in her awareness, that she has seen a fissure and that fissures can divide stone. The morning after begins the slow lowering of the curtain on the first act of this amplified small-town drama. The things that must happen next do not feel optional anymore. Little signals begin to sharpen. A neighbor's comment about Bill's odd working hours. A voicemail left on an answering machine that plays at the wrong time. A child's innocent repeating of a phrase overheard at the lake. All of them, gathering like clouds, promise a storm that will not simply pass by. And in the background, the game, because there is, always, a game running under the skin of these encounters, moves like a player on a board. Hayley, with the image in her palm and a suspicion in her bones, begins to consider that she must go farther than simply returning a phone. She must know whom Bill loves, what the photograph means, whether the hint of secrecy is anything more than a private kindness to someone else. If it is a kindness to someone else, is that forgiveness or a betrayal? If it is a secret for a child who needs a friend, is it a mere indulgence or negligence? Dani, forced into the role of someone who notices small things and makes them matter, prepares for confrontation in the only way she knows how, by rehearsing the words she will use if the time comes, by stacking evidence in the corners of her mind, by making lists. Bill, who would rather mend than accuse, keeps folding the phone under his pillow like a talisman against the night. Hayley, who has always been good at performing small deceptions, playing a scene to get a laugh, pretending to seek help so she can observe, finds herself unmoored by what she saw. Kat and Thomas, having remedied their own immediate fracture, are blissfully unaware that the larger board is being moved while they attended to their hearth. The tension tightens like a wire. Everyone in the house has chosen a posture: defensiveness, curiosity, suspicion, or reconciliation. The night has left them changed, and the new day will demand explanations. Somewhere, in the interior messaging of the town, people will begin to choose sides, the way friends always have in such dramas. The evidence will be minimal. The emotional stakes will be maximal. Underneath this domestic theater is the question that will not leave any of them in peace: is Hayley motivated by jealousy, or does she have a scheme so vast she has not yet described it to herself? Is Bill's tenderness proof of concealment, or only the small kindness we offer when someone asks to be included? Is Dani's fury a defense of a clean home, or the art of holding on to the only truths she believes she has? For now, the story is a series of scenes: a stolen phone, a photograph at dusk, a party where a guest's presence is a provocation, a couple promising reunification over candles, a mother's suspicion sharpened into command. The players move with the plausible logic of people trying to keep life from unraveling. The house breathes and shifts. The ordinary becomes an instrument of surprise. The cliff of the first movement holds one bright, bitter question: what will happen when the truth, whatever form it is willing to take, steps fully into the light? It is morning when the texts begin to multiply like small insects finding a crack in the wall. She slept poorly, the kind of restless watchfulness that turns every small sound into a reason to awake. Kat wakes first and finds Thomas still in bed, a book closed at his chest. They lie together, skin warm and calm, as if the night had been a medicine. The promises made by candlelight feel real in a way that is different from the social performative. Here is a place where two people, exhausted by their own cleverness, choose each other. The safety of that choice gives them a heady buoyancy. Yet one corner of the house is not so steady. Dani's breakfast is a study in distractedness. She tears the newspaper in half and reads nothing. She makes lists that do not get completed. In the kitchen, Bill seems distracted, not because he wants to be elsewhere, but because elsewhere is a photograph and a message he has not addressed. He rereads his messages as if pattern recognition could convert rumor into something manageable. When he sees Hayley's name in the phone again, All the old misgivings twitch. Hayley, in her small apartment, scrolls and scrolls, trying to find the proper knot of something that will justify the alarm in her chest. She finds an address buried in one of the threads, a name that triggers distant memory. Marina House, she reads, and it hits her like a bell. The name is a place she has seen on old maps, a seam between neighborhoods where people go and do not speak of the things they do at night. She does not know if the address means something tender or a betrayal, only that it presses like a key to the lock she had not realized was there. She decides to go, not to confront so much as to see. Curiosity, once given permission, becomes a pursuit that does not respect the ordinary lines between right and wrong. She thinks of Chelsea and the small, bright life she protects. If someone has been turned away from her child, or if secrets hover near that child, Hayley will prefer action to waiting. She drives. The road is a ribbon. The town wakes reluctantly and is full of sudden bright windows where someone is already awake and waiting for the day. She arrives at Marina House. It is a place with columns and an air of retirement, like a house that keeps its distance. An old woman sits on a bench with a cardigan knitted in neat geometric rows, and she looks up at Hayley with a smile that is neither accusatory nor surprised. "Can I help you?" the woman asks, and for a moment Hayley imagines it is a moment where everything will be explained easily. But the woman is a stranger and gives nothing away. Inside the house there is a small cluster of people, a support group, a craft circle, an afternoon where the world is measured by teaspoons and hand-stitched edges. Hayley finds a photograph on a bulletin board, Bill, but younger, at the edge of a community event with a camera in his hands, wearing a hat with a band that reads Marina. There is another face beside him, one that seems to know him intimately, a gentle press against his shoulder. "Do you know him?" Hayley asks a woman in a cardigan. The woman nods. "He used to volunteer up here," she says. "Years ago. He was good with kids. Kept to himself mostly. Quiet." The particularity of those years' quietness, volunteerism, presence does not easily line up with the image that made Hayley anxious. She wonders why Bill never told Dani about this part of his life. She wonders why the photograph at dusk, with the message that she doesn't know, exists. When she hears the words, "He used to come with someone else, sometimes," she feels a small unease settle down her spine. Bill has, as it happens, been part of a network of people who volunteer, who sit with old patients, who keep the edges of community soft. His work at Marina House is not scandalous. But the photograph's messenger remains a riddle. The voice of the one who wrote "I don't think she knows yet" rings like a bell. Hayley knows she is in dangerous territory when the explanation becomes plausible but still incomplete. Back at the Dupree house, Dani watches Bill with the narrowed attention of someone who is sorting emotion into boxes. She cannot accuse without being sure. She knows the moral cost of that. She has been on both sides of it. Bill, meanwhile, wants the tension to ease, to have the small thing photograph, the message, the presence of Hayley fold into a domestic event and be done with it. But he realizes that there are truths that only reveal themselves when someone insists on looking for them. In the quiet corner at Marina House, Hayley decides to do something she rarely does. She tells someone the truth as she sees it. "I think there's more to this," she says to the woman who runs the day program. A prim, severe woman named Laura. There's a message on his phone. Hayley's voice is small in the bright room. "I don't know who he's talking about." Laura's expression is private. "People have histories," she says. "They are allowed them." The notion that Bill might have a private history, a kindness that belongs to someone outside his marriage, is not an explanation that settles the ache in Hayley's chest. It is, however, a fact. People who do good often find themselves a harbor that does not require confession. It is also possible that Bill had said nothing to anyone because it was not necessary to say. But Hayley, in the role of investigative interloper, wants more. She returns to the Dupree house in an agitated frame. She wants to tell Dani. She wants to tell Chelsea. She wants the heat of accusation to be placed plainly on the table. But she also knows how fragile Dani is. How easily a home can tip when a wife feels betrayed. She wants to do good, not harm. She has to decide what kind of harm she is willing to cause. The conflict between wanting to defend and not wanting to hurt becomes the axis of Hayley's next decisions. She chooses to confront Bill privately. The two of them meet in the kitchen again, the phone between them like a fuse. He looks at her with an odd mixture of apology and pride, as if he is hiding something, not because it is shameful but because it is tender. She asks him about Max. He has the wrong expression for a man with an affair. He is apologetic, yes, but also embarrassed. He confesses, Max is a name he used when he volunteered at Marina. Shethir was someone, a girl who needed a friend. I tried to be there. I thought it would be enough to help. Hayley doesn't know whether to feel vindicated or foolish. The explanation is banal in the way it is offered, like a bandage wrapped rapidly over a cut. There is no melodrama, just a man who did what he thought was right. But the message in the photograph suggests something deeper and more complicated. He volunteered, he helped, and now someone else's place in his life is being kept private. The phrase "I don't think she knows yet" suddenly takes on a different color. Perhaps it is about a kindness he did that he had not yet disclosed to Dani because he feared it would seem like an infidelity of the heart. If the crisis had ended there, it would have been a small domestic misunderstanding resolved in the way most such misunderstandings are, with a rapprochement and a measure of humility. But life, as the Dupree house knows, is not content to leave things simple. People are complicated. Secrets grow teeth. A photograph remains a photograph, and some photographs are taken in order to be used. Hayley returns the phone to Bill. Her face is the portrait of someone who has been given an answer that relieves her of immediate suspicion but not of its deeper anxieties. She wants to be a force for good, but she also wants reassurance. Bill offers both, a promise to be more open about his volunteer work, a confession that he should have told her months ago. Dani, overhearing from the doorway, sees the exchange and believes the worst. The home becomes an arena where the small fissures in trust are exaggerated into monstrous things. The rest of the town, equally hungry, begins to form opinions. Someone mentions the image at Marina House to the wrong person. Gossip is a fast-growing plant. Eva hears something half-formed at the hair salon and imagines the rest. The tiny town's social web becomes an electromagnet, pulling certain tissues of experience together until they spark. Kat and Thomas, living in their little bubble of restored promise, are suddenly aware that their peace exists within a tectonic zone. At the center of all this is Chelsea, who only wants her birthday to be a small, bright day of candles and friends. She notices the tense lines that appear at her parents' mouths and the way Hayley's face looks like the wrong thing in the wrong room. She has the unhelpful talent of speaking truths at the most brutal moments. If you don't like Hayley, you can just say so, she says to Dani, incredulous and direct. It is the kind of sentence that will later be repeated at other junctures, when adult discretion fails. Timing and information arrange themselves to make the problem worse. Someone forwards a text to the wrong person. A voicemail is played at a PTA meeting. Bill is confronted by a neighbor who thinks he has been unfaithful and is protective of his family. Dani, who has prepared lists, now has more than enough to curate her own narrative. She begins to catalog moments, to collect proof in a way that feels like an armory. The pressure becomes a lever. It unbalances a man who has tried to create stability. Hayley watches all of this and feels, in a private corner, that she has done something monstrous. She had wanted to find a misstep. Instead she has opened their house to possibility. Whether the possibility is erosion or reconciliation is not yet decided. A night approaches when the Dupree home is no longer a safe place for politeness. Friends and enemies gather, the way people do when a drama in town becomes a community event. The party that had begun with birthday candles has turned into an interrogation. The players move across the living room like chess pieces. Stakes have compounded, a child's trust, a wife's dignity, a stranger's secrecy, and a volunteer's tenderness that might or might not be treasonous. And still no one has the whole picture. They have fragments. They have pieces that, if given to the right person, will make a satisfying narrative. But narratives are not settled by fragments alone. They are forged in the interplay of motives and the often unromantic work of speaking honestly. The evening's climax arrives in a form that no one predicted. A candid moment where a small truth stumbles out of someone's mouth with the force of gravity. A neighbor raises his glass, half in jest, and makes a comment about people who keep secrets. A laugh misplaced becomes an accusation. Dani, who is no longer polite, asks the question that has been simmering: who is he for? Bill? Who is that photo for? The silence that follows is like a held breath in a crowd. Bill opens his mouth to speak and then stops. He realizes, with a kind of helpless shame, that even telling the truth if he could would lose him something. He is, in the humiliating way of human beings, aware we are always less than our past. Sometimes the past includes a tender act for a stranger that looks like a love affair when the wrong eyes see it. He tries to explain that Marina House is a place he volunteered. He tries to explain the photograph as simply a recorded kindness. But explanations do not land cleanly when the mood is corrosive. Dani hears the words and feels them like a betrayal. Not the fact that he helped, but that he hid it. Hayley, meanwhile, watches from a doorway and feels as if she is both the perpetrator and scapegoat of a crime she only half understands. Thomas and Kat find themselves pushed into the sideshow against their will. Their evening of reconciliation must be put on a pause. They watch with the helplessness of bystanders in a town play with real stakes. Anita, the grandmother who had advised silence, stands in the corner and thinks of how quiet counsel can sometimes be mistaken for cowardice. What must happen next is not a single act but an unfolding. Someone must choose to open up or to shut down. Someone must decide whether the accusation is worth destroying a family over. The house waits like a theater set before the final act. The possibility of a tear is real, and the question is whether the tear will reveal truth or simply leave a hole of something that was never fully seen. Hayley, who stole a phone to find out the truth and found instead a field of blurred, difficult kindness, realizes that her actions have consequences she did not intend. She sees Dani's eyes, the rawness there, and she understands that there is no immunity when you pry. She had wanted to be right about jealousy or malice, and now she wants, more than anything, to make it right again.